Welcome to the Igniting the CEO Within podcast, where we interview successful high-level professionals to discover lessons they've learned throughout their career that can help ignite that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge, and I'll be your host for the next 15 minutes or so. Our show is sponsored by Quade, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quade has developed Launchpad, which offers an opportunity for experienced executives to become licensed circle directors and earn significant recurring revenues. After completing the Launchpad program, you'll lead your own peer advisory circles, helping other CEOs and entrepreneurs excel in their professional and personal lives while providing a community of support, accountability, and challenge. If you'd like to learn more, go to quadecircle.com. Really excited about today's show. I've got Mark Voytek, founding partner of Next Stage Trajectory out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Fantastic. Great to be here.
Look, hey, based on a lot of what you do, you've had exposure to some amazing leaders. And I'm curious, when you start to look at potentially investing in a new organization, you've got to take a look at that leadership. What are some traits that you look for on somebody whose company you're going to invest in?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Founder growth or success of founders, and that's kind of the business that we're in. Next Stage Trajectory is a growth accelerator. We
Mhm.
help organizations on we help them through the valley of death, which is 1 million in ARR to about 10 million in ARR. So we call it 10x growth in 48 months is the target. And of course, we talk to a lot of companies, and some are larger and some are smaller, and it's usually always the founder. And so some of the questions that I get is, and I get this from the founders themselves, what makes a founder, what makes a company, a startup, how do you accept them into your program? And I don't
Mhm.
want to overly maybe make it like it's that it's that restrictive. Founder growth and founder leadership, and what we look for in founders are traits that would include, I would say, open mindedness, the ability to take advice, um,
Mhm.
someone that's really passionate. That's probably the most important. Someone that's really passionate about the topic. All of us have probably listened to Simon Sinek at this point and start with
Yep.
why.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to make the circle on the board here as we have our Zoom call, but ultimately, starting with passion and purpose, the why statement, why you're in business, that's probably what kicks off a trigger for us as we evaluate founders and evaluate their companies. And then those two other things that I talked about, are they open minded? Will they take advice? Are they fun to be around? And it sounds a
Mhm.
little trite, but ultimately, when we think about founders that we want to engage with, and our program's a little bit different than some of the other incubator, accelerator, even venture capital, we work with the founders for 48 months. We focus on growth. We're really connected to them over the 48-month period. So again, we have to have them take the advice. We have to work with them. We have to like them. They have to like us. And
Yeah.
if that happens, then we accept them into our program.
Yeah, that's really good, and I think what's interesting is when you start with that why and having that passion, it's almost, it's seemingly it could be challenging to have that open mindedness, right? Because you started this baby from scratch with a passion for whatever it is that you're building and all that kind of stuff, and now you've got somebody coming in and saying, "Hey, that's cool, but I think you can do it better." I I mean, do you find that a lot, that there's a lot of pushback on that? Or how do you start to get that openness when somebody's like, "Man, I know what I'm doing."
Yeah, I've got 37 years in the industry, former partner at Ernst and Young. First half of my career was sales and sales leadership. The second half was consulting, advisory, Fortune 1000 companies, and many friends and family and former colleagues either know people or are starting their own business. And you start to form opinions about them. But even when we get into a dialogue as next stage with a founder about the company that he's starting, as we do this, and we've been around now about a year and a half. We have 25 portfolio companies, but as we engage with the founders, I get a sense, and I'll alert, or we'll prep for the call with the founder, and I'll try not to let my biases into the equation, but I'll kind of say, here's what's probably going to happen. And so, yes, when the founder comes in and they don't want to take advice, not always trigger that or always figure that out prior to accepting them into the program, and we've been successful and we failed in both of those.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the personality of the founder, again, if they're finishing your sentences, if they're cutting you off as we're asking them questions, if we're engaging with them, not to say it's right or wrong, but if they're doing that, then at least that makes us ask different questions. And it's not necessarily about providing advice that calls their baby ugly or let's go in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
As a growth accelerator, we're prior to venture capital. We're kind of after angel. We're kind of between that. Those companies that are about 1 or 2 million in ARR. As we dialogue with them, it's less about giving them advice, formal advice,
Mhm.
and it's more about asking questions and getting them to come to some conclusions where then they can make the decision. So for us, it's not too bad. But when we're asking them the questions, of course, we're triggering something within them, and then we could almost see their face.
Yeah.
We could get their reaction, and if they defend or if they're insecure about it, that's when we're like, oh, okay, well, if you don't need our help, then we can. And again, it's not this bold, but we can end the call right now. We don't have to
Yeah.
kind of continue because you have all the answers. You don't need our help, and so good luck. I mean, we'll still be friends, just like we were
Yeah.
when we worked together, but ultimately, either as part of our program or in general. I mean, just being
Mhm.
open minded as a founder. I'm a 3, 4 time founder myself, and so I try not to let my familiarity with something hinder my my creativity in taking
Mhm.
that to market and engaging with whatever the topic is. And so I try to be open minded and I listen to the advice and then try to reflect on that. So, not necessarily calling their baby ugly, definitely a
Yeah.
questioning process. But at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier.
Is when you talk about that valley of death, I think you reference it as, when you talk about that, what's something that a founder is doing that's keeping them in that valley and preventing them from getting it out? Is it similar to that openness to being able to explore and getting and maybe even getting out of the day-to-day operation of I need to control everything? Is that Do you find that often?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of what got you here is not going to get you there.
Hmm.
And so when you get to about 1 million, maybe a little bit more, depending on your background, for the most part, it's selling to friends and family, and it's probably selling a value proposition that's focused mostly on feature functions and speeds and feeds. And it's that revelation that there's what we call, and we have this as part of our 6 step methodology, we call it a unique value prop, where as part of our 2 day kickoff, and then every other week when we meet with the founder over the 48 months, we dialogue with them about what is your unique value prop, not how fast your software is going to work or how quickly your AI is going to build something out or we
Hmm.
we all think that's great and the founder thinks it's great and that's why he or she even created the offering, the data set, the tool, the service as software, whatever it is. That's why they created it in the first place. But
Yeah.
ultimately the ability for them to kind of think outside that. I was working with one of our portfolio companies, and as we were selling them, they were talking about their average sales price, and it was 40K, $40,000, and I said, add a zero or 2 zeros, and you'll have my attention. And so we did a kickoff with them, and it was again a 2 day, and they kept talking about how fast they could get through 100,000 contracts and how quickly they could extract obligations and use AI to drive insights. And again, that was awesome, and that's fantastic. But
Hmm.
at that point, you're selling to a director level. And so we started to do some research, and like everybody else today, whether it's Perplexity or Grok or Chat or whatever it is, we did some
Hmm.
research, and right there in the meeting, we discovered that there's an article published by one of the big four, validated by a couple of other industry groups, that said basically your agreements or contracts could impact your overall revenue of your company plus or minus 9%. If you manage your contracts proactively, your sales contracts, your procurement contracts, both sales side and buy side, the
Hmm.
ability to impact your revenue could be there. And so now that becomes a CFO discussion, right? Not a
Hmm.
director of legal tech buying who's just trying to process 100,000 contracts and pull out those obligations. And so we reformatted their value prop and again elevated the discussion and made it more value based. as opposed to how fast they could get through. And of course, that opened up, a lot of other opportunities for both their current clients, customer success, and also the new codes, the new clients that they were trying to sign. And it again elevated the discussion to the C-suite or the board.
Yeah, that's great. So really helping them reformulate and taking to a whole nother level what they originally got into the business for, right? Is
Yep.
is a big portion of what you do.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some what's some what I mean, based on your successes, right? You probably don't get a ton of feedback or pushback, but if you did, what are some of those pushbacks that you might ordinarily see from a founder that's going in?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit of a. Let me answer a little bit of a different question. When we work with clients and we start them on that 48-month journey, we do that 2-day kickoff and we go through 4 of the 6 methodology steps. Things are great, and we get about 2 or 3 months in, and as they're growing, they start to need some money, and so we help them with their money raise.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, and this has kind of been unique, not unique, but they're not sure what they need, and so they'll come to us with 100,000 or 1 million or a $2 million money raise request, and we'll go out to our market. Actually, before we do that, we question what's use of funds,
Yeah.
and as we start to dissect that, we start to highlight some of the things that are being done in the marketplace to and give you an example. There was one customer that had a website and they were going to pay 30,000. This was about 3 months ago. So they were going to pay $30,000 for a redo of their website. It's like, I mean, not that Lovable or Vibe Code or No Code, Low Code is actually going to make your website automatically.
Right.
And so that doesn't really cost anything, maybe the credits that you get in Lovable, but you definitely don't need to spend 25,000, $30,000 on a website anymore, pending all sorts of security and payments and additions and user counts and everything else. So use of funds is one that we really question as part of the dialogue that we have with our founders every 2 weeks. The other I'm finding, and of the 25 portfolio companies that we have, we're in about 8 money raises. And several of the founders struggle with selling. And because they're founders, they're not, and they don't even necessarily admit that they want to sell. But I think that when you go for a money raise, number one, you want to be crisp. You want to have your pitch deck, and the pitch deck has to align to the story, and the pitch deck should be leading practice. And so we help the founders pull together the most recent templates, I guess, and then help them put that together. But that's just more of a table stakes. The ability for them when they get in the room with the investors or on a Zoom call or in a meeting in a workshop of some sort, or even in an
Mhm.
elevator pitch, I'm finding that they struggle to sell a little bit. They're not able to really, we had one founder who in a 20-minute pitch was supposed to go through his deck and spent about 15 minutes introducing himself. I was proud of him too. And he was a very accomplished. But obviously, as we know, the ability for a founder to introduce himself in the 20 minutes that you get with these investors and only have 5 minutes to kind of get through the ask, right? Really,
Yep.
or the use of funds or what you actually do and why you do it. So they struggle a little bit. One way to address that that I'm trying, and I'm doing it actually as part of some guest lecturing I'm doing in at Xavier University here in Cincinnati. I'm on the Haslam School, University of Tennessee's advisory board. I'm creating what I'm calling a founder pitch simulator.
Hmm.
And so, in the low code, no code, basically the founder pitches into the platform. They hit start, they hit end, they hit analyze, and it comes up with, and they upload their deck. It comes up with what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, and what are 5 things that you can do to get better. And by the way,
Huh.
here's a number ranking on how you did. And so they could just do it again and again. So
Yeah.
instead of coming to myself or one of our other partners and get guidance on what they could do, and usually first is don't say ums and ahs and don't, or don't spend 15 minutes introducing yourself. And so we're trying to integrate AI technology,
Yeah.
technology in general, trying to make it proactive instead of saying we will sit and be your Shark Tank as you pitch to us to try to raise money, or here's 5 books, go read those and call us in the morning.
Right.
We're trying to use technology to stay at the forefront to help, in this example, help founders just get better at something that they're not necessarily good at, nor should they be really good at? But
Mhm.
unfortunately or fortunately, it's a qualifier for them to raise the money or not, because you only get so many swings at bat with the founders, or I'm sorry, with the money raises. And
Yeah.
if you struggle, you don't get another chance to go back and try to raise more money if you didn't have it right. So this founder pitch simulator is a good tool for us to use with our founders to be able to get them to practice before they come to us, and then of course we practice it with them. But again, now we're not filtering out those things that are pretty obvious.
What of that's awesome. Of when they go through the pitch simulator, are there do you see similar, like, is there a grouping of things that come back of, man, you got to tighten this up, or like, are there some certain things that almost always appear?
Yeah, again, spending too much time on your product, your feature functions, how great your tool is, not getting to what the ask is, not explaining what the use of funds is.
Hmm.
And we're trying, and we're using AI to not just have it be the words that the founder's saying. So we're having them upload their pitch deck as well. Now, obviously, every time the founder simulator sees it, it's going to get a little bit smarter. But it's typically that you didn't ask for the order at the end, you didn't summarize the way you could have, you
Yep.
spent too much time introducing yourself. Again, you spent too much time on the feature function are some of the things that we typically see. And again, getting those right. Tell a story, right? Don't read the slide. A
Yep.
common fault of any of us. I mean, and I've been in their shoes, which is one of the reasons why we developed the code to try to practice that.
That's cool. What so thinking through that and thinking through the use of funds, if you're going to go in and raise money for the first time, what what are what are the first legitimate uses of funds that founders should be looking for?
Yeah, it's always well, I was going to write an article, and I'm trying to remember if I posted it or not on LinkedIn, but I was jokingly saying it's easier to raise 3 million than it is to raise 300,000 right now. And I say that because when you're trying to raise 3 million, I mean, clearly you've got the ICP, you've got product market fit, you've got a set number of customers, ideally, depending if it's B2B and depending if your target market is Fortune 500, you've got two of those. I'm making that up. Maybe it's four, maybe
Yeah.
it's one. But when you're raising $3 million and you can go through those credentials, right? That's viewed very positively. The contrast of that, when you're trying to raise $300,000 to finish your MVP, create a demo,
Hmm.
um, find your first customer. I think companies really struggle with that. So what I'm finding in raising money is, number one, you've got to have an MVP. Number two, obviously, you've got to have a little bit of market traction, product market fit.
Yep.
Definitely have to have your ICP defined.
Yep.
Um, obviously, not. I mean, technology is moving so quickly that everything is changing, but not get replaced, or not get disintermediated too quickly. So,
Hmm.
what's your ramp? What's your runway? If it's less than 2 years or a year, gosh, I mean, you're not going to get funded. So, I'd say those are some of the triggers.
Yep.
Um, there's all sorts of funding sources, as we all know. There's crowdfunding. Obviously, there's angels. There's pre-seed with venture capital. There's all sorts of groups out there, and we've signed up for all of them.
Hmm.
It's hard. It's hard to raise money right now, but I think the crisper you are in where you are on your journey, I think setting the expectations and having that MVP done, potentially getting client number one, even if it's your high school or college or your college roommate or your high school best friend,
Right.
whoever it is that's buying, and hopefully, if it's B2B, it's a Fortune 500 name, because then you can anchor the revenue on that. It's also maybe misery choice company. Get one, right? If you can get 50,000 or 100,000, getting a couple of other entities to fund beyond the 100 is usually something that we see, because other people will jump in with you, with them, with your first funder. So those are some of the discussions we're having with the founders about money raises. We do find, and there was a couple of companies that we've been talking to, and they also call us a little bit too late, and
Mm.
so they're kind of like, I need money. It's like, okay, well, hopefully it's more than 60 days, 90 days, actually.
Yeah.
And they're like, how soon? I said, we're out of business in 30 days. I said, well, you should have called us X number of days ago or months ago. because at this point it's really too late. I mean, there's number one, the
Right.
due diligence process, number two, the timing that it takes to get the check in your bank account. And so, unfortunately, and we've had to have some tough love discussions with founders, both inside our program and outside the program. Inside our program, we use a scorecard. So every 2 weeks, we pull up the scorecard. It's got what their goal is, their life changing target, we call it. It's
Mhm.
got their core values, and we establish those during the kickoff. Of course, it kind of reassigns their UVP, so we remind them of the UVP and the core values, and every decision should go back to what those core values are. But then we have a list of 5 to 10 initiatives, and the initiatives are used to be able to track kind of what do you need help with? Do you need an
Mhm.
introduction to Costco? We can help. Do you need Kroger? Can help with that too. Morgan Stanley up in New York probably help with that as well. And those are some of the initiatives, and they're mostly focused on go to market. And that's the above the line. Below the line, we track widgets sold, revenue, and then how you doing, and cash flow. And so, what do you have cash on hand? Do you have enough? If you don't have enough, then we need to start planning. So, in these cases where they've come to us too late and they weren't part of the program per se, they struggle. We would flag that, suggesting that, hey, we have this big marketing initiative, we have a big tech development that we're doing. We'll need to fund those. To go back to your earlier question, the
Yeah.
ability for then us to be able to identify then how much more time we need. And again, it's not 30 days, it's not even 60, it's more likely 90 or 120. And so, having a methodology, having that scorecard, working with the founder on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. I think formally our program suggests that, and that we should work with the founders every other week. Um, each of our operating partners have five. I've got four right now. I talk to the founders every week. I
Yeah.
dialogue with them about those things, the initiatives and the scorecard itself, and what can we help with, and is it marketing, is it product, is it pricing, and again, just how are you doing? Because the valley of death, that 1 million to 10 million, where only 3% are successful, it's tough, and it takes
Yeah.
a toll on us personally. It takes a toll on the family. And so one of the questions we often ask is, how are you feeling? And
Yeah.
if they're not feeling well, I mean, we're not a psychologist, or we're not able to give that kind of advice, but at least we can kind of commiserate and see what we can do to maybe alleviate some things. So we have that
Yep.
as kind of our formal methodology as well.
Love it. Love it. All right. We're bumping up on time. I'm
Cool.
going to end with one question for you. If you think back to 21-year-old Mark, what's one thing that you wish he knew that you've learned over your career so far?
Yeah, 21-year-old Mark is not far from 12-year-old Mark. Is not far from where I am today. And networking is critically important. The power of your network and staying connected. When I was in eighth grade, so maybe I was 14. When I was in eighth grade, junior achievement came into our school, and I was the only one that stayed in from recess and met with Bill Duquette. Bill was an executive at IBM. He was also part of junior achievement, for those that know what junior achievement is. And so I was the only one, and so we dialogued, and I didn't even know what he was saying. Probably at that point, I was wishing I was out playing softball with the kids in my eighth grade St. Patrick's class in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And then when I was a sophomore in college, I was reconnected to IBM, which is where I had one of my first jobs. And it was one of my first internships. And my second interview was with, guess who? Bill Duquette.
No
I
kidding.
didn't know the connection. I walked into the room. I remembered him. He vaguely remembered me. Of course,
Sure.
I reminded him of the story. And I literally got that internship. We called it a co-op at the time. Literally got that co-op while I was in school. Was able to make whatever it was, $15 an hour, whatever. That was a ton of money at the time. But
Right.
had that internship, and I would go back to 14-year-old Mark when I stayed in for recess, and Bill Duquette was doing junior achievement. And then for me, the legacy of that, I just, I don't turn down many calls of people that need some mentoring. I'm really passionate about trying to give back, because I would not be in this position today had it not been for 14-year-old Mark,
Yeah.
20-year-old Mark when I got the internship. We were co-op with
Yep.
IBM, and have had virtually kind of a technology career for 37 plus years, and ended up as a partner at Ernst& Young, and now board advisory, and starting this growth accelerator called Next Stage.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man, I've loved it. This has been a blast. Thank you. Share with people. You've done a really good job of talking what a typical engagement would look like, but share with people how they can get a hold of you.
Sure. So it's Mark.Voytek at Next Stage Trajectory. And of course, on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn probably more than most people. People don't necessarily see the value. I also see the faults of it.
Yep.
And so we're actually doing some things, and we're building some code to even work on some of that. But Mark.Voytek at Next Stage Trajectory. LinkedIn, of course, is always an option. And then happy to receive phone calls. So my mobile number is always available, 513-259-3465. That's my Cincinnati mobile, and happy to take some calls and spend some time.
Love it. Love it. All right, my friend. Thank you for taking some time. Really appreciate the insights, and it's been amazing. Thank you.
Great time. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, y'all. We did it again. We found another amazing leader sharing some great insights into leadership and the business world and the valley of death. Wanted to remind you that Igniting the CEO Within is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has created Launchpad, which provides an exciting opportunity for experienced executives to become licensed circle directors and earn significant annual recurring revenues. To find out more, visit quaidcircle.com. Until next time, keep igniting that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge. Thanks for listening.